Beth, you're on mute.
I know, I was just getting set up. So, good afternoon, everybody. As Heather said, my name is Beth True. I'm the Vice President of Value-Based Care here at Health Texas. I normally don't have the opportunity to do the health talks, but today my educator was not available, so I get to step in. And I have to say that education and training is one of my passions. It has been for a really long time since I became a nurse years ago, and I've sort of dabbled in education and training since then. So I appreciate you letting me present to you today. I like to have a laid back environment. So as we go through this presentation, if any of you have comments, please take yourself off mute and just join right in. I think you'll find that if you are participating, it won't seem as long and maybe boring for you. So just please feel free to join in wherever you feel like you would, and we'll go ahead and get started. So today's topic we're going to talk about is work stress. We're going to look at what it actually is. We'll talk about some work-related stress factors. We're going to talk about some negative effects of chronic stress at work. We're going to talk about how to deal with stress at work and improve your overall mental health. And then at the end, if there are any questions, we will go through the Q&A at that time. Okay, let me get ready here. So first of all, just before we even get really deep into our presentation, think about those things when you come to work every day that seem to cause you stress. Sometimes I like to just say, close your eyes and think of that one thing that just always is that trigger for you. Sometimes it can be a task that's due or that you have to do on a particular day. Sometimes it can be that coworker, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to deal with so and so today, and it already sort of stresses you out prior to sometimes even getting to work, and sometimes you even stress about things at home the day before or the day of. And we do know that work is one of the most stressful environments, no matter if you like it or not. I can say I absolutely love my job, and I can also say I absolutely can say that there are times during a regular work day, even though I love what I do, that stress creeps in. Um, Workplace stress can come from high workloads or demands, tight deadlines, not really having control over tasks. That's kind of like, I need you to do this and I need you to do it by this time. And you don't really have that opportunity to say, oh, but I've got these other things to do, or, really having that opportunity to have input. Maybe job insecurity. Maybe some poor work-life balance. Maybe you're like a lot of us here at Health Texas, and we all have our own laptop computers, and we can take them home, and we can work on the weekends, and we can work in the evenings. And it seems like it's always about work and not necessarily about our life outside of work. And again, it can be conflicts with colleagues, and it may be not even a conflict, but it's just maybe that one colleague that just always seems to rub you the wrong way. They may be too chipper and come in smiling and singing at 8 o'clock in the morning when you haven't had your coffee. It could be a colleague that's just that always negative Nelly, no matter what happens or how good life is, they're just always going to have that one thing that they're not happy about. And that does influence us. And as we deal with the workplace stress, all of this adds to additional pressure. And so, again, we'll talk a little bit more about how to deal with stress at work. But one of the things that's really important is to learn some stress management techniques and work habits that help you alleviate that tension, reduce your symptoms of chronic stress so that you can stay mentally and physically healthy, because we know that stress not only affects us mentally, but it also affects us physically. So let's define work stress. According to the CDC, work stress is the harmful physical and emotional response that occurs when the job requirements do not match the worker's capabilities, resources, or needs. And that's a mouthful, right? But I think the key takeaway is its physical and emotional response. And job stress can lead to poor health and even injury. Injury comes into play. Sometimes we get so stressed that we can't remain focused. I came from a million years ago. I did a work comp case management as a nurse. And oftentimes, when we'd get work comp injuries, we'd find out that, once you start doing the digging, maybe somebody just wasn't paying attention and maybe they were using a front end loader and a box fell on them. And when you start talking to them and they're like, well, my boss just got on to me and I just wasn't paying attention. And you can really drill it down to maybe a lot of those injuries can be caused by job stress. And then, of course, chronic work-related stress can lead to mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. So here's just a few common work-related stress factors. Stressful situations can happen anywhere, but of course, at work, we're all extremely susceptible to them. And why is that? Because we spend a third of our life basically at work. So just simply by being present at work, it allows us to be more exposed or have more exposure to things that can cause stress. And why does work make people so stressed? Again, we were talking about earlier the workload, long hours, low salaries, little or no opportunity for growth, lack of support. And that's a key item, and it's not just necessarily support from your superiors. It could be support from your team and your coworkers. Sometimes you get put up for that big project and you have to work on it and you're not getting support from your team members. Maybe they could help pitch in, but they're like, nope, they asked you to do it, so have fun with that. Bad relationships with colleagues and leadership. I think this is one of the really key factors when you have that stressful job. I can say as much as I love my job and as stressful as it can get, the one thing that I don't have is the bad relationships, because I think when you get to the point that your relationships are causing stress, that's when you have to really take a step back and look at things and try to figure out, is this the best place for me at this time? Unclear performance expectations. This is also a big one. A lot of times we come to work and we feel like we're working really hard and doing a really good job. And then we find out maybe it's time for that annual performance review, or maybe it's a monthly one-on-one with our supervisors. And we find out that we're really not doing a good job. And we have that conversation with them and realize that maybe what we're doing isn't exactly what they expected us to do. Maybe we're not meeting those expectations, but maybe it's because they weren't clear with us. They didn't say, I need you to do this job because this is the outcome I'm looking for. They're just like, go do your job and let me know when you're done. And then you find out on the back end that maybe you went the wrong direction and it's not what they were asking for at all. We also have the issue of workplace bullying. This one's really important. Certainly, if you are in that situation, you need to escalate that either to a manager, or if it's an issue with a coworker, or certainly to human resources if it's an issue with a manager or somebody that supervises you. And then just the unhealthy workplace culture. Sometimes we call that a toxic workplace or toxic environment at work. I think when you're in those, and you can actually have those in little pockets. For instance, you may in your own little group be doing fine, but overall you see that the whole workplace is toxic, or you see that, hey, this is a really great place to work, but my little department is really struggling. There's some unhealthy or some toxic things going on in our little section. So that certainly can lead to that work-related stress. And then here's just another piece of information. 2022 Gallup State of the Global Workplace. According to them, the pandemic and its aftershock continue to disrupt the workplace. Only 32% of working people across the globe say that they're thriving at work, and 43% report high levels of daily stress. And, I can understand back when we were in the middle of the pandemic, everybody was high alert and high stress. And then things seemed to kind of try to return to normal, and a lot of things did return to normal. But there's also still those issues out there because of the pandemic that is still causing some workplace stress. I can tell you from my department, one of the big things is because we are able to manage our jobs without direct patient care, a lot of the team was sent home to work from home. They were those remote employees. And now since the pandemic's cleared and you see, just globally across corporate America, the goal is to return employees back to the office. Well, can you imagine you've been working at home for 3 or 4 years since the pandemic, and all of a sudden your boss calls and says, "Hey, by the way, I want you back in the office in 2 weeks." And since that time, you've tailored your entire work home life around being able to work from home without that hour commute and without having to pay to take your lunch or go out for lunch. And now if you get off right at 5, you can still get the kids to their ball practice. But all of a sudden somebody's calling saying, "Well, come back in the office." So sometimes it's even unintentional. You're having to face that stress, and maybe it's something that you just didn't even see coming. So here's just a few effects of chronic stress at work. Long-term exposure to chronic stress caused by work-related stressors can lead to the following things: decreased productivity, missed deadlines, missed opportunities. This is a big one: absenteeism and increased turnover. At some point, you get to the point where you just can't drag yourself out of bed to go to work because every time you go to work, you feel so stressed. And so I'm just going to call off today. And then I'm going to call off on Friday. And then I'm going to call off next week because it's just really getting to the point that you don't want to go back to work because it's causing so much stress. And the next thing you find yourself doing is looking on Indeed or LinkedIn or Glassdoor, and you're looking for other jobs. And the next thing you know, you're out the door because you found something that looks a little bit better out there than what you're currently going through. And then, of course, it can cause negative thoughts and negative emotions in the team. And we always said negativity is so contagious. It only takes one on a team to drag the whole team down. And it takes that whole team to pull that one person up. So if you have negativity and negative thoughts, the whole team is going to suffer as a result of that negativity. And then more importantly, I think if you look at how long-term stress can impact your physical health, we know that it can cause high blood pressure, which can lead to all kinds of conditions, including heart disease. It can cause anxiety. It can cause muscle tension. It can cause sleep disturbances and other serious health issues. So if you're finding that you're carrying that stress home, and do you find that that stress is affecting you physically? Then it's really time to take a look at the cause of the stress and then what you can do to alleviate some of that stress, whether it's something you can do in the workplace or something that you may have to do elsewhere. So again, just talking about how to deal with stress at work and improve your mental health. One of the things that I always say is you can't change the way people act. The only thing you can change is how you react to their behavior, right? So I think that's something to always keep in mind. If you have that one coworker that irritates you constantly, you're not going to change them. You're not going to make them stop irritating you, but you have to work on how you can change the way you react to them. And it could be as simple as just ignoring it. It could be laughing. It could be removing yourself from them, from their presence. But I think it's really important to look at that and figure out, what can I do to make this better for me? So you have to think about, why am I stressed at work? That specific situation that causes chronic work stress. Is there anybody on the phone that's willing to share something that causes stress at work? I'll give you just a minute if you'd like to come off and add something that causes you stress. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and share one of my issues, things that cause stress to me is timelines. We have a lot of things, and Heather, who's also on the phone, where we work at Health Texas, a lot of things have deadlines. And sometimes you'll find out that you have a deadline and it could be like end of business today. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can get that done. Or how am I going to rearrange my day to get that done? So you have to look at what kind of things trigger that stress when you are at work. Is it a specific situation? Is it a specific person? Is it a specific task? And then you have to find the source. Once you find that source, that's like your first step to reduce your symptoms. A lot of times we don't know. You come home from work and you're just tense and you're all wound up, and maybe the spouse or the family or the pets can sense that you're stressed. But maybe they'll say, "What's wrong with you?" And you're like, "I don't know. I just got off of work and I can't deal with you right now." Sometimes to be able to figure out what really is causing that stress is to use a diary. Note the times that you feel at work that make you feel stressed or drained. Sometimes it's that 3 o'clock text or email that says, "I need you to," or "Are you available for?" When you get those, just jot that down and maybe say, what was it and how did it make me feel? Because keep in mind, stress doesn't feel the same to everybody. Some people that get stressed get wound up, they get angry. Some people that get stressed, they're just like emotionally and physically exhausted. So it's important not only to figure out what's causing your stress, but then how are you reacting to that? What does it do to you mentally and physically when you come in contact with that stress? And then after a week or two, just go back through your notes and see if you can figure out what that actual trigger or that actual stressful event or catalyst is, because you have to know what is causing it to figure out how to manage it. So, some things to do to deal with stress at work and how to improve your mental health. Improve time management and time estimation. So we know work stress is often caused by being overwhelmed with workload. And so that's something that I think we see a lot. There's just so much to get done and there's just so many hours in the day. And so when you have that feeling of being overwhelmed because there's so much to get done, that's when you really have to take that list. And sometimes it's a matter, and I'm a writer. I like to write things down. I like to write with a pencil on a piece of paper. I don't like to type it. I like to feel that pencil and write down that to-do list for myself. And then I go back through and figure out, okay, what of those 6 things I have to do today? What is the priority? What is the one thing that I absolutely have to get done today, or I'm going to be in all kinds of trouble, or it's going to affect other people's work? And I start with that one, right? I look at that and say, okay, this is something I can get done or I have to be done with immediately. And then I look at those other tasks and say, okay, this one maybe needs to be done this week, and this one maybe can wait till next week, and go through your list and really prioritize what you're doing. Because what happens if you just take a little bit of each one, I'll do a little of this one, a little of this one, a little of that one, you find that you're not meeting your deadlines. The next thing you know, everything's late and you're in trouble, and then that stress just continues to grow within yourself. So you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to attack this to-do list and prioritize it and then be done with it, right? Sometimes even in the situation, you have to figure out if there's somebody in your department or, in your work group that can actually help you with those tasks. Is it something that you could delegate? If it's a report or something, do you have somebody that can pull something for you so that you can work on other things? The main thing is if you come home stressed and stay stressed, you're not going to sleep well. If you don't sleep well, you're going to be tired tomorrow. And then you just have that ongoing cycle of tired all the time. And of course, again, that's going to add to your physical and mental feelings of not being healthy. 24 hours a day sometimes is just not enough time. If there's not much hope that your number of tasks is going to go down, you have to focus on time management. One of the things that you can find in literature out there is time tracking or time boxing or eating the frog. Eating the frog we'll talk about in just a little bit, but it's just a way to reduce stress related to the big workload. So you can to improve your overall mental health, you can do some relaxation techniques, practice mindfulness and meditation. Meditation sometimes is just a matter of sitting at your desk and closing your eyes for just a minute and trying to shake off that feeling of stress. Really feeling yourself, feeling your thoughts. You can add in some deep breathing exercises, engage in physical activity. And this is twofold. You can do after hours exercise to help reduce stress and improve your mood. But sometimes when I get a little overwhelmed at work, I'll get up from my desk and just take a walk. And sometimes I have to go outside and walk around the building just to like get fresh air and clear my head so that I can go back in and sit down and deal with whatever issue is a priority at that time. But it will definitely help. Sometimes it helps you reset. Sometimes it helps you refocus and be able to actually go back to that prioritization that you have to do. And again, that's your regular breaks. I'm bad about, I don't take breaks. Like I'll find myself sitting at my desk sometimes and it'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm like, well, I finished my morning coffee at 9 and I haven't had anything to drink since then and I haven't been to the restroom. And oh no, I don't even think I stood up from my desk yet. That's not good. That's not good physically and it's not good mentally. So, and certainly not eating. Like, we'll go all day and we don't even eat lunch. So it's important to step away, take some breaks just to recharge, take your lunch, eat your lunch. Incorporate activities that you enjoy. If you're in an environment that you can have a little radio or a little background music to just sort of drown out the noise. Some people like to crochet on their lunch break. I'll see them sitting in the break room and they'll be crocheting or doing crafts and different things, whatever it takes just to take you away from that stressful environment just for a short while. Seeking social support. I think this is a double-edged sword as far as building strong relationships with your colleagues. I think it's important to have positive relationships with your coworkers when you're at work. That doesn't always translate well to befriending your coworkers after work or your colleagues because you may find that work is what you have in common. So when you meet up after work, the only thing you have in common is work. So you're at work talking about work, and then after work, you're meeting up with your coworkers and talking about work more. So I think it's important to find that separation. If you can do activities outside of the workplace and you have friends and you can go to ball games or concerts or have dinner and shake off the workday, I think that's really healthy. But I think you have to be really careful about those relationships outside of the workplace because it could just end up causing more work-related stress. If you're really struggling, talk to your supervisor, talk to HR. Most employers have, different resources available for you, EOC or some type of employment support, and they may be able to direct you to those support companies or support groups that can help you and help individually to find the way to address your stress in a one-on-one, confidential means. Get support from your friends and family. If you have a trusted family member or friend that you can really lean on and talk about stress and seek their support. What you don't want to do is every time you talk about work, it turns into a gripe session or it's just going to compound your unhappiness. So when you're going to talk about your work-related stress or issues at work, Make sure that you're doing it from the right place. Look, I'm having these issues. I'm struggling with this. Has this ever happened to you? Do you have any suggestions for me? If you went through it, how did you get through it? Or if you didn't, think about what I'm going through. What kind of advice can you give to me? You want to approach that from an open standpoint so that as you're talking to those friends or family members, you're getting from them what you need and not just able to, continue to just complain and dump all of that stress on them as well. You can also join support groups or attend workshops related to stress management, mental health management. There's all kinds of different meetup groups and community resources on how to deal with stress. And just keep in mind, today we're just talking about workplace stress, but stress is everywhere. Stress is in the car on the way to work when somebody cuts you off or flips you the bird. Stress is at the restaurant when you've been waiting 45 minutes and somebody walks in and gets seated right away ahead of you. I mean, we deal with stressful situations day in and day out. And so, if you can find those resources that help you deal with stress and maybe take a different look at it or a different perspective, I think that's really important. And just being able to maintain and manage your physical and mental health. So, a little bit more about time management. So, time tracking. Tracking is just how much time you spend on tasks, projects, or activities, both yourself and with your team. And it really looks at just how to improve time management. If there are certain areas, and they call them bottlenecks, but if there's areas that everybody seems to just end up trying to do the same thing at the same time and nobody's making progress, time tracking can certainly help with that. You can do it manually. You can there's software to time track, but it's really, how many tasks do I have? How many people are working on each task, or is it me on my own? When are things due? And then where are those issues that we're really going to have a problem? So when I look at this little picture, and I'm sure it's small if y'all are looking at it, a couple things going on. Like January, February looks good. March kicks in and you've got like 3 tasks. April, it looks like you're finishing one, starting another, right in the middle of one of them. So you can see that's going to show you kind of where you have to really focus your time management skills to make sure that you're able to get everything completed. And then what you can do with this tracking is see if there are other resources available. Be able to sit down and have a conversation with a supervisor and say, look, this is what's going on. I'm not sure if I can meet your deadlines and your expectations, and have a conversation. As a leader, I think one of the most frustrating things for me is when we're super busy, everybody's busy, everybody's really, kind of struggling through to get everything done. And somebody will come in and sit at my desk and I'm like, I can't get anything done. Okay, well, explain that to me a little bit. Well, we've got all these deadlines and I just don't think I can do anything. I think everything's going to be late. Okay, well, explain that a little bit more, right? If somebody comes to me and they're struggling with their time management or with their task and they don't have the resources, what I like to hear is, look, I've got 5 things due this Friday. There's no way I can get all 5 of these things done by Friday. So what I need from you is either help me prioritize and figure out what really has to be done by Friday, or see if there's additional resources that you can allocate to me to help me meet those guidelines, right? Come to the manager or supervisor with a solution or with some type of ideas of how to address your time management issues, rather than just coming in and saying, I can't do it, fix it, because they're really not going to have the time or probably even the patience to help you work through that if you haven't thought through on your own. Of course, we can increase productivity by figuring out who's doing what. If there's billing involved and people bill by the hour, time tracking of course will help show where the billing is allocated. And then we also look at employee compensation. A lot of businesses, they have annual merit increases. Some of them have bonuses. They have different compensation models. And so we want to make sure that hourly employees are compensated correctly. And if they're working more than 8 hours a day, they need to be paid more than 8 hours a day if they're hourly. Those of us who are salary sort of just kind of suck that up a little bit. Oops, I'm sorry. But in the interim, um, we just, that's part of being a salaried employee, but you just need to make sure that compensation is fair based on how much work people are doing. Okay, time boxing is a little bit different. It's setting a deadline for a task, even if it's not completed, and then working on it within that time frame. It helps produce productivity, reduces procrastination, promotes focus, and creates a sense of urgency. So you'll identify your task and how long you think they'll take. And then you assign them to specific time slots. And I do that on a regular basis. So if I know Friday I've got a big project due, then I'll map out time this week on my calendar, and it may be an hour in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, and I'll block those and say, work on X project. In the afternoon, work on X project. Even if I know I'm not going to get that project done today, that allows me to focus my time during those periods. I turn off my phone ringer. I turn off my Teams messaging, like what you just saw pop up. I turn off my email, and I focus during that time. And then at the end of that time that I've blocked, if I find that I need more time, then I'll just set some more time up. But a lot of times, if we have open time on our calendar, people will see that as an opportunity to throw in another meeting and schedule me to do something else. When in reality, you have to set that time up for yourself so that you have that undivided time scheduled so that you can work on those projects or tasks and get them done. Eating the frog, this is a little bit different. Eating the frog is a productivity technique popularized by Brian Tracy, meaning to tackle the most difficult or important task first thing in the morning to get it out of the way and build momentum for the rest of the day. So I don't know about y'all, but when I first come in the morning and I've had my coffee, I'm good to go. If there's something that needs to be done, I'm on it. And then as the day progresses and you get more scattered, more stuff comes in, it's really hard to go back and try to figure out, okay, what was that I was doing and how am I really going to get that done today? And so the frog is the most challenging or the most unpleasant task on your to-do list. And to me, like eating a frog would certainly be an unpleasant task. But if you do it first thing in the morning, then you know that you're not dreading it the whole rest of the day, and you can focus on other priorities. Getting that hardest part done early can prevent procrastination and the buildup of negative emotions associated with that task. So if you've got that frog sitting on your desk and you know today I got to eat that frog, you might as well just eat that frog first thing in the morning instead of watching it in that jar all day, dreading it. And at the end of the day, you just can't build yourself up to get that frog eaten. So you're going to wait till tomorrow and start all over. Get it off your desk first thing in the morning. And it may not be the most important thing, but it's the most unpleasant or challenging thing. So you want to do that with fresh eyes, with after a good night's sleep, and really being able to focus on that task first so that you can focus on other things the rest of the day. So how do you do that? You just have to figure out what that frog is. What is the most challenging or unpleasant or important task that you have to do? And do that first. First thing in the morning, energy, focus, good to go. Once you start, stay focused and work until you eat your frog. Then once you complete that frog, take a moment to acknowledge your accomplishment and you reward yourself. So you do it. Maybe you want to get up and walk down the break room and have another cup of coffee. You may want to walk around the parking lot. You may want to just Teams message one of your coworkers and say, oh my gosh, I finally got that done. Just for some praise and for some accolades to be able to say. Now, if you tell them that you ate the frog, they may be concerned. So be careful how you phrase that. but definitely you want to reach out and let people know that you were able to get that most difficult thing done first thing in the morning. So this talks a little bit about mindfulness and meditation. The things that helps with is your emotional regulation and stability, being in the moment, being present. I don't know about y'all, but a lot of times I find myself, even though somebody's sitting in front of me and I'm having a conversation and they're talking to me, my mind is on the four next things I have to do when they leave my office. And so if you work on being mindful and being present, you can focus on now instead of worrying about something that's going to happen when they leave your office or worrying about what's going to happen when you get this task done and you have another task. So really think about being present all the time. It helps with improved focus. If you train your mind to stay present, it can improve your ability to focus and concentrate, which can also be helpful in time management. It'll give you increased resilience. So just to help you allow yourself to better cope with challenges and stressors at work, you have that ability to stick to it and work through it. A reduced threat appraisal, so it can help you view work tasks less as a threat and more as a challenge. So it kind of turns the switch on going from something negative to something positive. You know, a threat really sounds negative, but looking at something as a challenge, yeah, they think I can't do this, but I'm going to show them what I can do. And then just mindfulness and meditation just calms your nervous system. And if you focus on the mindful breathing, you know, like 6-second breath in, hold it for 7 seconds, breathe out 8, you know, do that just to really be present with yourself in the moment. It will help calm your entire body, both physically and mentally, and that should be able to help you move on and have less stress to face the next thing that you're going to be asked to do. Time management strategies, again, a to-do list. I think to-do lists are so important. If you have them in your calendar, if you're real computer savvy and you want to have a calendar with all of your tasks and activities for the day or the week or the month or the year, you can prioritize them and use a planner. Set yourself some goals. This goes back to like my nursing. We used to have to do SMART goals for care plans for patients, but you want to have goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. So I'm going to get this report pulled and analyzed with 100% accuracy by whatever time and date. And the way we can see that it was completed correctly is because this is the outcome. You know, you have to really think about the setting goals and making sure the goals make sense to what the task at hand will be. Again, the time blocking, I think time blocking is so important. Putting time on your calendar that says during this hour, I'm going to work on this, no interruptions. Some strategies. This is really hard because a lot of us work in those environments where multitasking is key to success. But sometimes, you know, multitasking is different than being a phone operator and having to answer the phone and talk to a person and look up their account on the computer and give them that information and print it and put it in the envelope so you can remail it to them. That's a little bit different than having a project that you need to take some real good time and sit with that project and finish it. You don't want to have one project going and then you get tired of working on that. So let's jump to this other one. And now it's getting kind of sloppy. We're going to jump to the other one. You know, make sure that you're focused on one thing at a time so that you can concentrate and be productive. Eliminate distractions. Again, that goes back to that time blocking I was talking about before. Turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, find a quiet place if you can. You know, some people frown on headphones in offices. Sometimes I find that in the gallery spaces where you have little cubicles and everybody works in there together, sometimes the noise canceling headphones are helpful because you don't really want to hear your neighbors talking about what they did last weekend and who went hunting and what they got. You want to sit there and focus on your project. So whatever your work environment allows to reduce distractions or minimize interruptions, please check on those and follow through. Do similar things together. So if you know that you have to pull 8 reports from a specific area, go ahead and pull them and get those out of wherever you're pulling them from and put them in a folder. That way you won't be pulling one, working on it, doing a bunch of stuff, going back, pulling another one, going back, pulling another one. When you're doing that, just do the same thing together until you have to switch to something differently. And I think that'll help you keep going back and forth and back and forth. Managing time effectively, learn to say no. Now, this is tricky, just like some of the other things we've talked about. Sometimes we as subordinates don't have the ability to say no to our boss. We can't say, can't do it or not doing it, sorry. What you can do is make sure that you're not overcommitting yourself to things that you weren't even asked to do. We have some people in different meetings and it's like, oh, I'll do that. Oh, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. Right. They're in that environment. They got a bunch of people watching. They got a bunch of eyes on them and they commit to everything. And then they leave that meeting and think, oh no, what did I just do to myself? What did I just commit myself for? Be able to decline tasks if they don't align with your priorities or your workload, or be able to have, as I said earlier, that conversation with your boss to let them know, okay, I am happy to do anything that I need to do for my team or for this company, but we have to figure out where is the priority because I need help with that. Delegate when you can. We talked about that a little bit before. If you have a team member, like if you have that one person that can go in and pull 8 reports and throw them in an Excel spreadsheet in 15 minutes, see if they have time to do that for you. And then they can stick them in a folder and then you can go to work. And again, take regular breaks because you need to take care of yourself. I think at the end of the day, if we're overstressed at work and we're not taking care of our physical, mental, and emotional health, we're going to burn out. We're not going to do 100% at work. And then we're going to become dissatisfied. We're going to be stressed and then we're going to be looking. So we end up not doing anybody any good when we don't take care of ourselves first. Use technology. If there's tools, software, task trackers, email management, anything out there that will help you stay on target, I think you have to leverage the technology that you have in your environment. Reward yourself when you reach those milestones, whether it's self-reward or just letting the team know that you did something so you can get their praise and accolades. Some people, that's all they need is to be recognized and they'll move on. Practice that mindfulness, do your deep breathing, do your meditation, get your exercise, get your sleep, and then self-care. Coming from the healthcare system, and I've been in healthcare now for like over 30 years, we're probably the worst at prioritizing our own health. We're probably the worst to exercise, the worst to eat healthy, although we're the ones that are probably most educated about it. We don't set good boundaries because why did we go into healthcare? I want to be a nurse to help people. So then when you get an environment where maybe that's not the sole priority of what you do, it's really hard, but you have to set those boundaries and figure out, is this something that is within my workload and within my role? And if it's not, being able to set a boundary and say, listen, I'd really like to help on that project, but that's really outside of what I have access to or what I'm knowledgeable about. So you need to get somebody else to take a look at that. And then getting professional help if you need it. Again, EEOC and some of the different entities that are available through the workplace and in the community can certainly help if you're having stress and anxiety that's more than you can manage on your own, either in the workplace or outside of the workplace. Get hooked up with some of those community resources or work resources available. They really can help. Connect with others. As I said before, spend time with friends, family, colleagues to reduce feelings of isolation and build strong support network. Again, just be careful if you're if you're communing with your colleagues, make sure that it's for fun and it's not just another way to rehash work and deal with the same stress outside of work than you have in the workplace. So with the mindfulness and meditation again, just become engaged. It helps you be creative, solve problems, improve mood. Um, Again, there is a little walkthrough in here as far as how to practice mindfulness meditation. You take a seat, you pay attention to when you breathe in, when you breathe out. If you can hold your breath, think about if your attention span wanders and try to focus again and just keep working on being present, being in the moment, and not letting stress overtake your work life. So just to summarize some of the things we talked about, of course, work is one of the most stressful environments, no matter if you like it or not. It can harm you physically and emotionally. Learn some stress management techniques and work habits that will help you alleviate tension and reduce behavioral symptoms. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on your physical health because we know stress can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, anxiety, muscle tension, which can lead to accidents, sleep disturbances. Improve your mental health by identifying the source of the problem, improve time management, practicing relaxation, seeking social support. Reducing workplace stress benefits everyone. So, if you find that you're stressed at work, I guarantee you there's plenty other people that are stressed right along with you. So rather than, getting together and talk about how awful the job is and how stressful it is, maybe it's time to get together and say, okay, we all seem to have this common problem. What can we do to fix it? Or what can we do to help alleviate the stress that we're feeling? And by doing that, it can improve morale, lead to increased productivity and better focus, fewer injuries, fewer sick days, improved physical health, and of course, improved mental health and well-being as well. So what questions do you have for me?
If you can take yourself off of chat, or excuse me, off of mute and ask the questions, or you can post the questions into the chat.
Okay, well, if there's no questions or comments, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. I appreciate you all attending. And you will be getting an email with the contact information or the recording for this session. So if you want to share it out, please feel free to do so.
Thank you guys for attending. I greatly appreciate it.